As reported, Russian airstrikes targeted and destroyed key Azerbaijani state oil infrastructure in Ukraine. In response, Turkey signaled its readiness to deploy forces to Azerbaijan, setting the stage for a large-scale rebalancing of power in the South Caucasus. Euromaidan Press media outlet says, in Azerbaijan, calls are growing for Turkish troops to serve as permanent peacekeepers and security guarantors against any future Russian move. The idea gained momentum after an Azerbaijani journalist asked President Recep Tayyip Erdogan when the Turkish army would come to Azerbaijan, noting that without it, there is always the risk of a new Russian occupation. Azerbaijanis argue that Turkish soldiers are the ultimate deterrent to Moscow as Russia continues moving additional troops toward the Azerbaijani border and reinforcing its bases in Armenia despite Armenian protests. At the same time, Azerbaijan is breaking with Soviet traditions. President Ilham Aliyev has ordered a full switch from Russia's military coordinate grid system to the US-developed World Geodetic System, the NATO standard. Euromaidan Press recalls. This removes one of the last major Russian frameworks still embedded in Azerbaijani defense planning. By adopting it, Azerbaijan can now ensure seamless interoperability with Turkish and allied forces, sharing targeting data and reconnaissance instantly without conversion delays. The technical shift carries a clear strategic signal. Azerbaijan is aligning its military infrastructure with the West, removing dependency on Russian systems in wartime. This strengthens the case for permanent Turkish troop deployments, ensuring both forces could operate jointly from day one, Euromaidan Press says. The sharpest warning came after Russian missile and drone strikes destroyed facilities of Sokar, Azerbaijan's state oil company, in Ukraine. In response, Baku threatened to go beyond humanitarian and defense support, raising the possibility of sending weapons directly to Ukraine. Notably, the Baku-based Avia aggregate plant began producing 122mm and 155mm artillery shells in 2022, using Turkish and Bulgarian production lines. These are exactly the munitions Ukraine urgently needs. If Baku scales up deliveries, it would mark a geopolitical turning point. A former Russian ally openly arming Ukraine, signaling Moscow's deepening isolation. By striking Sokar assets, Russia risks provoking a stronger Azerbaijani military role in Ukraine, one that Baku could pursue without fear. If Turkish peacekeepers are deployed in the region, Euromaidan Press says, the irony is clear. By hitting Sokar in Ukraine, Russia may have accelerated trends already underway, turning Azerbaijan into an active security partner for both Turkey and Ukraine. In trying to punish Baku, the Kremlin could instead push it firmly into the opposing camp, with consequences far beyond the oil sector.
Ukraine has acquired a new long-range weapon, the Flamingo cruise missile, capable of hitting targets located at a distance of more than 3,000 kilometers. A photo of the missile was published on Facebook by photographer Evrim Lukatsky. According to the author, he managed to capture the new weapon at the Defense Enterprise fire point. Its location has not been disclosed. Media noted that in its characteristics, the Flamingo is similar to the FP-5 missiles, the total weight of which is 6 tons, the warhead is 1,000 kilograms. The Ukrainian Flamingo is capable of flying at a speed of 850 to 900 kilometers per hour. While official technical specifications have not yet been disclosed, the missile's design appears similar to the FP-5 system presented earlier this year by the UK-based Milan Ion Group at the IDX 2025 Defense Exhibition in Abu Dhabi. Observers note that Ukraine's Flamingo may share comparable parameters, though confirmation from official sources is still pending. Until now, the Russia-Ukraine conflict has been characterized mainly by the use of drones and short- and medium-range missiles. However, the launch of Flamingo could escalate the war to a more severe and catastrophic level. This increases the risk of Moscow's retaliation and further destabilizes the situation in the region. According to experts, if the peace plan initiated by US President Donald Trump fails, the use of Flamingo missiles could escalate the Russia-Ukraine war to a more tragic level in the coming months. In any case, Ukraine's production of such a ballistic missile is not good news for the Kremlin. This weapon will undermine Russia's military and political balance, becoming one of the most serious threats to the country's security architecture. In May, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky ordered efforts to speed up the development of ballistic missiles. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the office of the President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky, said the missile's range could reach up to 700 kilometers. At the same time, advisor to the President of Ukraine on strategic issues Oleksandr Kamyshin recently stated that Ukrainian ballistic missiles are already in serial production.
A number of sources unofficially report that a group of the FSB from Moscow with the highest powers is working in the Crimea annexed by the Russian Federation, allegedly investigating the entourage of the Russian head of Crimea, Sergei Aksyonov, for abuse of power, conflicts of interest, and corruption. One of the Crimean human rights activists, speaking on condition of anonymity, told Krim.Relief that security forces from Moscow were working in the building of the Russian government of Crimea. My sources in the Council of Ministers of Crimea reported that the security forces have uncovered this quiet little world with inflated staff under Aksyonov's roof. This week, an ambulance even had to be called to the Council of Ministers as some people fell ill after visiting the office of the head of Crimea. But the security forces are not only interested in the Council of Ministers, they are paying great attention to Yevpatoria, where big problems are expected for the local leadership, the human rights activist reported. According to the human rights activist, the work of the security forces landing party came as a complete surprise to the top officials of the Russian vertical of power in Crimea. Recently, we have been seeing high-profile cases of confiscating illegally accumulated wealth from current or former high-ranking officials in Russia. This is due to the rapid growth of the budget deficit under sanctions. According to my information, the Russian leadership of Crimea has long been causing discontent in the Russian presidential administration with its insatiable appetites. The mass development of the peninsula by developers affiliated with the top officials of the Russian government in Crimea, with numerous violations, including environmental ones, forced Moscow to give the command to the security forces. So Aksyonov will have to share the billions he has accumulated and leave for another position, most likely outside of Crimea, the human rights activist said. He also noted that this situation indirectly confirms the Kremlin's intentions to end the war in Ukraine. Aksyonov was not touched, given his merits in the militarization of Crimea, but he overdid it here too. His personal army, Bars Crimea, became numerous and well organized. Constant exercises at the peak of the resort season raised many questions in Moscow. And the presence in the leadership of the Bars Crimea of such odious personalities as the notorious Samvel raises concern in Moscow and the understanding that Aksyonov imagines himself to be a local Tsar, the human rights activist noted. The authors of the resource point out that Aksyonov annually reports on the implementation of the federal target program for cash execution, ignoring the real results of the commissioning of objects. Abandoned construction sites multiply, and advances to contractors at the end of the year mask inefficiency. This leads to the conclusion about the possible theft of budget funds. Crimean activists have long pointed out the isolation of the Russian vertical power in Crimea from the Crimean people.